Hello, Robert.
Caroline, great to be with you again. I'm so happy that we are collaborating once more on another program together.
Well, I'm very excited about this because as with the first Enneagram class, I learn as much as the students. So learning and participating is a rare gift, let me say. And this class, the Enneagram of Love, I think is a marvelous offering to people, a marvelous offering. I know that you have written books on love. I know that this is one of your hallmark subjects. So I have several questions for you. I don't know that I'm going to get them all in. I do feel a bit like a reporter jumping at you. But I am going to start with what drew you to the subject of love as such a strong theme in your teachings?
Well, Caroline, I've found that really every inquiry that I took always led me to love. One of my first big inquiries in life was happiness. I created the Happiness
Right.
Project. And eventually after a while, I realized that actually, to love and be loved, that is the key to happiness, actually. Um, Similarly, when I created Success Intelligence, a company where I was offering leadership programs around the world, eventually I ended up telling everybody, if your definition of success has little or no mention of love, get another definition. It's not enough for
Well done.
you.
Well done.
In my leadership programs, I often say that actually a leader is the person who is willing to be the most loving person in the room.
And all right, so here comes the next 25 questions. Really jumped into one. I'm going to condense it. But why is love such a struggle? I mean, I've never once had anyone come into one of my workshops and say, I'm working with to be able to hate more, because
Mhm.
that's the effortless effort.
Yeah.
So why is love such a struggle?
Well,
What
yes, I
is
think.
love? First of all, how do you define it? And why is it such a struggle?
All right. Well, I know that we can feel love, but love isn't just a feeling. I know that we can think about love, but love is not just a thought. Um, I think ultimately love is the essence of who we are. That's what we're really dealing with. And fundamentally, love is far, far more than just an emotion. It's far more than just an idea. I don't think it's really even something that we give and take so much as something that we actually are. It is the essence of who we really are. And I think that the destiny of our life ultimately is not so much to find love, it is to be the most loving person that we can be. So actually, I see love as the great spiritual path. I see it really, in fact, I would say that I think it's our capacity to love and be loved that is the key to our personal well-being, to fully incarnating here on earth. I also, Caroline, think that love is our best and only chance as a human species to evolve and survive. I think we are here to create a climate change from fear to love on every level, and that is the great work of our life. So in that sense, I see love as the creative spark. It's the great medicine. It's the chief science. It's the artist's muse. It's the soul of politics, if politics does have a soul, and I hope it does. I think it does. We need to see more evidence of that for sure. But I also think that love is the heart of activism. All true activists participate in the world in such a way where they're offering love in action the whole time. So it is, I think, the great calling of our life, for sure. And therefore, anytime we are engaged in an inquiry, a meditation, a conversation on love, I think it's the most relevant and important thing we can be doing in our lives.
I can't agree with you more. I think love is a magnet because I think it's the life force.
Hmm.
I actually think it is the power of life itself.
Yeah.
And because of that, I actually think it's God. It is our way of distributing the closest we can get to the vibration of God in life, which is why love is such a high. When we come near it, we become electric, we become electrified. and it has such profound healing powers. It has the power of resurrection. It has the power of renewal. It has powers that no other emotion has. Compassion doesn't have that. That's a tranquilizing version. It's a watered down, but actual love, actual unconditional love, which
Mm.
doesn't have a feeling. It's past feeling. It is a force of non-judgment. It is a force of all of those names we give the fragments of love put together,
Yeah.
which is why I think this Enneagram is a description of the fragments of how many ways love manifests within all human beings, because I think the pure God force can't possibly go all through one human being. So we all get a dose of it. And I would love for you to describe briefly each one of the classes that we're offering in your beautiful program on the Enneagram of Love, because they are positively stunning.
Thank you, Caroline. Yes, and just to say, I'm thrilled and grateful to you that we're going to be working on this program together, because for me, the most important thing is that when we address love, we allow love to be as big as it is, and as powerful as it is, and as real as it is. And therefore, we have to be so careful to make sure that we don't reduce love into a thing that frankly it makes it too small, and therefore I think causes us to suffer. For example, we know that in February, we have this strange date called February the 14th, Valentine's Day. Yeah, and it's that day when everybody is meant to pick one person to love and then send them a card. And one of the biggest causes of suffering on our planet, I believe, is looking for only one person to love. If you are looking for only one person to love in your life, you have missed the point of love. The whole point of love is you're here to love everybody. And love does not pick and choose who love loves. Love is a force that is always love. And if we're going to learn how to love somebody, we firstly have to be willing to love everybody.
But you see, you put your finger on something that is so incredible, which is, first of all, the confinement of telling your heart to look for just one person.
Mm.
Secondly, the possibility, if not probability, that we're capable of loving so much and so many. And two, what happens if we open the door of ourselves that wide and we do start loving so many, because people don't know how to respond to love. It begins to become wired into, then am I responsible for them? What do I owe them? What
Mhm.
does love demand of me? Which
Yeah.
is which is a very serious and profound question, because love draws in the early stages an incredible response of, because I love you, I must now become your caretaker. I must now make sure you're all right. I must now, there are responsibilities that we associate with loving,
Hmm.
which is why we put up so many barricades to opening ourselves to loving so many.
Yeah. Yeah. The Enneagram for me, Caroline, has been the most wonderful model for helping me to address some of these misperceptions about love, and also to address some of these blocks to love. In particular, for example, the roles we take on in our loving relationships, like, for example, the role of helper, the role of rescuer, and those sorts of roles, which actually end up blocking the awareness of love's presence in our relationships.
Mhm.
The Enneagram, as you well know now, having run through spiritual growth in the Enneagram together, the Enneagram, we can work with it in three distinct ways, and we will on this program. We're going to look at the Enneagram of personality, this most beautifully observed system that helps us to look at the operating system of our ego, and it helps us to address the basic fears and those inner blocks to loving relationships. So we'll do it that way. That's one way. Another way that we'll work with the Enneagram is to look at these 9 points on the Enneagram, which are like, the Enneagram's like a mandala of meditations. And we're going to experience together 9 holy meditations on the power of love. And then we're also going to look at the Enneagram as a map of consciousness that's offering us a path, really looking at love as a spiritual path and looking at those stages of growth in love. So we'll be looking at it in those 3 ways. And then we have our 10 classes. And in our 10 classes, we're going to start with an overview of the Enneagram and how we can use the Enneagram as a lens and as a tool to help us truly cultivate this greater relationship to love. That's how we'll begin. And then after that, I mean, really, that's when I think the fun begins, because we're going to walk around the Enneagram, this sacred symbol, 2,500 years old, this wonderful collaboration, really, of sacred mathematics, natural law, and spiritual philosophy. And as we go around the 9 points of the Enneagram, we're going to be really conducting 9 meditations on love. At point 1, we're going to be looking at perfect love. Point 1, Caroline, for me is I can't help but think of it as the home of Plato, really. So Plato always comes to mind here at 1, because, of course, he described God as the one, and really God as that expression of love. This is a quote from Plato. He said, "Love is born into every human being. It calls back the halves of our original nature together. It tries to make one out of two and heal the wound of human nature." That's so rich, that.
And how brilliant that was all that time ago.
Yeah, absolutely. We talk so much about progress, and then we hit upon Plato all those many, many hundred years ago, and clearly there was something he was onto right there. And so that wound of human nature, we're going to explore what that is, and we're going to look and see how love can help us towards experiencing a higher love. And indeed, we'll talk about something called love's prayer at that point. Point two will be really exploring unconditional love. The Sufi poet Hafiz said, "And still, after all this time, the sun never says to the earth, 'You owe me.' Look what happens with a love like that. It lights the whole sky." So yeah, here at in this class at point 2, we're really going to be looking at what is unconditional love. And we'll draw upon many sources here, but in particular, Eric Fromm's work, The Art of Loving. And looking at the difference between to have and to be. You know, he outlined these 2 modes of living, to have and to be. And he said, you know, when we slip from that place of being, we turn love into a thing that we have to have, that we have to get. He actually says we create commercial personalities, we turn ourselves into attractive packages to try to get the love, and thereby we miss the whole point of love. So what can we do about that? And how can we make our relationship to love much more unconditional? And ultimately, how can we be more receptive to love? Point 3 is all about love in action. And it's really exploring how we can make ourselves into instruments of love. And here we are really addressing the point that really love is the great work of our lives. And it involves a surrender. You know, there's a surrender. I think this is one of the reasons why we have found love so difficult, is because we haven't wanted to surrender to it yet. But of course, we must at some point. At point 4, we're going to look at the title is called Secret Beauty. And I'm inspired by Thomas Merton. and I'm going to be sharing actually an experience that Thomas Merton had, and that he wrote up in his classic work, The Conjectures of a Guilty
Yes,
Bystander. Yeah.
I'm familiar with that.
Yeah. We'll also be looking here at Plato's ladder of love. We're going to be looking at love as that creative spark that can support us in creating acts of beauty in the world. The next class, we go to point 5 on the Enneagram. This is where we will also explore type 5 on the Enneagram. And here I've called this one Omniscient Love. Now, this is super exciting for me, because for me, one of the biggest breakthroughs that I've had in my relationship to love is the understanding that love is intelligent. Love knows how to love. You can ask love to show you how to love and be loved. If you try to do this all by yourself, despite your best intentions, you are going to fall short. But if we can get a feeling for this idea really that love is intelligent, and therefore we can pray to love in the same way that we pray to God, because after all, as you said earlier, God is love and love is God. In the Acts of John, you hear that God is love. Then I think that takes us way beyond theology. And love is no longer a theory, it's an experience of reality. And I think that's at point 5 on the Enneagram, it's always a very mystical seat. We'll also, by the way, here be looking at Shelley and a poem of Shelley's called Love's Philosophy, which I look forward to sharing as well. By the way, also here, I can't help but put this in as well. We'll be looking at something that Sigmund Freud said, which is that we must begin to love in order not to fall ill. So we'll explore
Isn't that brilliant?
Yeah. I remember the moment I first heard that. I was in it was a psychology lecture. I think I was 19 or 20 years old at the time, and for the most part, up until then, it was all bad news from Freud, and then suddenly, right towards the end of the lecture series, but also right towards the end of his life, he made that point. We must learn to love in order not to fall ill.
Extraordinary.
Yeah. Point 6, type 6, we are looking at the ground of love that holds us up when we are flying and when we're falling. Here we're also looking at love as our guide. And I will here be drawing on the work of A Course in Miracles. I think it's very appropriate here. And also the book that I wrote with Louise Hay called Life Loves You as well. Point 7, type 7, we're into omnipresent love. This is where we recognize that ultimately, at some point in our life, we have to be willing to give up the search for love. We have to understand that ultimately looking for love is a spiritual blindness. How long does it take you to find something that is everywhere? Yeah, let's see if we can, in our stages of love, move from looking for love to being the most loving presence we can be in the world. Point 8, type 8, this will be our class 9. This is really where I think we address the power of love in all its glory, omnipotent love. And here I'm going to draw on Martin Luther King, who said that love is the greatest force in the universe. He said it is the heartbeat of the moral cosmos. That's a great statement.
Isn't that incredible?
Yeah. So here we're going to be looking at love as the higher power, but we're also going to be looking at the ways that we defend ourselves against love, and actually how we can make sure we surrender to this fabulous term that you have given the world, a cosmic sized love, a love that is bigger than us, a love that we will ultimately disappear into. And then 9, point 9, type 9, actually is considered the seat of holy love. This is the love that Krishna addresses with Arjuna in the Gita. This is the love that fundamentally holds up the whole cosmos. This is the field of love that we're living in, and this is the point at which we are asked to incarnate fully into the world so that we can be the most loving person we can be. The world has just heard news of Thich Nhat Hanh passing away. And, at point 9, Thich Nhat Hanh wrote a book actually on love in which he said the greatest act of love is to be present to somebody. And this, for a lot of us, that's the scariest thing of all, is to be present to somebody, but it is the greatest act of love. And I think our great work in this world is to love the world. And how do we do that? Once again, we'll be looking at that there as well. So it's rich, Caroline. It's really rich. And for me, the great icing on the cake with all of this is that in each class, after I have offered an outline of all of this, in each class, you're going to give us your reflections on what we've explored, and then also a spiritual practice, some spiritual direction for putting all of this into practice in our lives.
Well, I think with the spiritual direction, I think it's necessary to take this rich topic for every class and break it into, how do I apply this in my life? Because the way in which you present love is so rich and so texturous that a person wants to grab on and make it tactile. And maybe that's my skill, is I'm good at that.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm good at weaving it in and saying, this is what this looks like, and this is what you're afraid of, and this is why you're afraid of it, but you're drawn to it. And so I think it's a good partnership.
It's a great partnership, and this is just more and more sorely needed as each year rolls into the next year. It just becomes more and more clear that the most relevant thing we can be doing, I think, in our lives is to be addressing the subject of love, to be cultivating this relationship to love where we all show up more fully, more bravely, with more imagination, with a bigger feeling of contributing to this transformation on our planet.
Well, I'm gonna wrap this up by saying I think that suffering has evolved in a very deeper, in a much deeper way through these last decades. We suffer differently. We suffer in a deeper way because we have become creatures of inner space. It's the new frontier. Inner space and outer space are like the two new frontiers. And because inner space is that frontier, we're looking to understand ourselves in a way that previous generations have not. And we're looking to understand the nature of our power. And that's never been a question that was on the forefront of the mass of humanity. And now it is. What is my power? Where is my power? What is power? And at the end of the day, power is love, and love is power. And it is the source of anxiety for people. If they understood what depression was, if they could put it in the context of my inability to see things in love, my inability to use love as part of my solution, to look for love. What does that mean? Because most people are passive and they think love should come to their door, and it should be like, as you said, that one person, instead of I must go out and be loving. But how do I do that?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what we'll address. I'm so excited, so grateful to you for saying yes to wanting to do this program, Caroline. We're going to have a ball.
Oh, I think so. So I am inviting everybody to seriously take a look at this, because without a doubt, you are someone who is involved in the mystery of love, loving yourself, discovering love, learning to speak love, learning to be loving. And if ever the world needed that part of you, it is now. So here's to our February class, Robert. I'm so looking forward to it.
Me too.
Thank you, darling.